several of those people brought to the hospital after the shooter was reported dead, and they were brought here on the back of pickup trucks. They were brought here in ambulances. They were brought here by cars, rushing from that scene after that shooter was dead. That's when we start to hear some of the people that were some of those wounded people just screaming out. So while the fact that they were shot in this incident, we do know that they were able to survive that because they were at least able to voice and scream as they were being taken into the hospital. I know that doesn't offer a lot of solace, but at least tells you that they were alive when they walked or were taken into the hospital. But a lot of somber mood out here from not only first responders, but some of the people who witnessed this horrendous crime that happened overnight. And, of course, still a lot of questions that we are hoping to get answers from at the top of the hour when OPD and mayors and local leaders all gather together to tell us exactly what they know. Back to you guys.
Yeah, we're going to hear from them in 10 minutes, Stuart. Thank you. A couple things just to point out. Number one, that video we just showed where those doctors are rushing outside the hospital, that was hours after the shooting. So many patients were brought immediately there after the shooting. But then, of course, we had that potential hostage situation where the shooter was still inside the nightclub. So that was kind of that next wave, if you call it, of patients that were brought to the hospital. This is earlier on in the night where we see so many patients being carried out by first responders and others in that area just jumping in to help carry them to the hospital to get them.
Just everyone pitching in.
Everyone pitching in to provide them with medical treatment. And we mentioned this earlier, but unmarked police cars, pickup trucks, anything they could find, giving you an indication of how many people were injured in this shooting. That's how they were brought to the hospital, not just in an ambulance. Some were brought in a marked police car, and some were brought in a pickup truck, a law enforcement pickup truck, because they were rushing to get so many people to the hospital as other law enforcement then goes to the club where that shooter had opened fire against Pulse nightclub, corner of Orange and Cayley Avenue. And back to Chopper 2, a live shot over there, we kind of saw a device that was outside. We know the bomb squad is out there. You can kind of see that device to the right-hand side of your screen. I don't know if that was used earlier that they had go inside the nightclub. I can tell you that we had a controlled detonation at 5 o'clock this morning, and that was actually live on the air. Stuart Moore was outside near the club when that controlled detonation went off. So that might be something that they were using a little bit earlier. But again, that's you can see the police presence out there and that device still there. So I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, usually when they use that sort of device, they are going inside to investigate something they don't want to send their officers directly into. But right now we want to go out live to Bob Keeling. Bob, you are standing live with somebody. Are they a witness to what happened?
Yes, I'm with an entertainer who was outside at the time and had just gotten to the Pulse. And you said you were outside just steps away from going into the club.
Yeah, me and my grandson, Kirk Da Vinci, we were outside, and then they blocked it off. Like, something happened, somebody shot, then we heard shots, like, literally, like, from me to you.
And so what did you do to try to avoid it?
We ran to the car. What would you do?
It's hard to imagine such a scene. And
like, I just moved down here. I've been here for 3 weeks. I moved from Johnson City, Tennessee to here. And
so it was just self-preservation, run for your life, basically?
Yeah, because we didn't know where the bullets were going to fly or what was going to happen or who was going to get hit. I mean, yeah.
To know there were so many people in what was a peaceful community being shot, we don't know.
When you go into our clubs, it's you love, you live, it's no hate, it's no drama, it's no nothing. It's for somebody to come up for somebody to come in the club and do that. They had to have something wrong. Something's wrong, and they didn't know cope or whatever, so they wanted to take it out on somebody else. And sadly to say, they took it out on my friends. I don't know. I came here, I went to one hospital, so they sent us to this hospital. I don't even know who survived and who's critical and who. It's much.
It's just hard to grasp. It sounds like it still doesn't seem like it's real as you're walking.
It's
down
not.
the street outside the emergency room.
It's not real. Like, I want to wake up. I want to wake up because these are my friends. This is my family. Just like me and you, I would come and have a glass of wine with you. I would just come and have a drink with you and chill. Like
they were doing last night before this happened. There was
somebody was not, whoever was not having a glass of wine.
So the big question is why?
Why? What the hell? I'm sorry to say that, but why? We just have fun. We live our life. We're just free to be.
Is it your fear this is some sort of hate crime?
Yeah, I've been a part of a hate crime. Like, I've done a lot of stuff and I had to fight. It's still hate. It's still here. Like, you have to wake up. We're just like you. It's like, it's hard sometimes, guys, you know? Wake up and just chill. Like, we're just like you. Why kill us? It'd be a different story if we pulled a gun on you and shot you, or we want to punch you, or we wanted to kill you, or whatever. It's the same thing. Just let us live.
So in your mind, in your experience, does this take this violence in your community to a whole different level?
It takes it to a whole nother level. Not only the bathroom issue, not only like the hate crime, like, yeah, like everything that you do, we do. Everything that you live for, we live for. We just want to live. We just want to breathe. We just want to be us.
Well, knowing that the FBI is now here on the scene and they're going to be part of a press conference.
Then get into it, FBI, CIA, whatever. Get into it. Just find out the root of the problem. It's not us. We just chill. We just have a good time. We just like to relax. We just like to be a part. What we want is to be one part of this human race.
So your bottom line here is just to find out what's happened with your friends and to get the extent of who is wounded. And
a lot of people can't even talk about this.
It's just so fresh and so raw.
And it's not even fresh and raw. This happens every day, guys.
But as you said, this takes it to a whole level of violence that we've never seen.
I mean,
before.
like, we get killed every day. Not only trans, not only LGBTQ, not only, we all get killed every day. Why? Because you're afraid of what you don't understand and you reject the unfamiliar? What the hell?
Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us. We really appreciate that, and we wish the best for your friends that you're coming to check on. Thank you so much. And I think it's important to point out, Brett and Michelle, that at this point, we don't have any information on a motive, and that's important to point out as we throw it back to you in the studio. But again, you just see this raw emotion of folks who were at the scene, outside the scene, and now coming to find out what's happening with their friends who are inside this hospital. And I just want to mention that I was around the front, and they are letting these people that we've been visiting with for hours now, including multiple mothers who have children inside wounded that they don't know what's happened to them. They are being allowed inside to get information, so we'll send it back to you in the studio.
All right, Bob, thank you. Many of you waking up this morning on a Sunday morning, we want to get you caught up to date on all of the details from overnight. A mass casualty situation in downtown Orlando. You're taking a live look over Pulse nightclub. This is on the corner of Orange and Cayley Avenue. There has been a mass shooting in this area, and what we can tell you is that police are in that still surrounding the nightclub. That is an active scene, as well as police surrounding that location at ORMC, just about a quarter-mile away from where Bob Keeling was standing outside talking to that witness when the shots were fired close to about 5 hours ago now.
And any second now, we are expecting to hear from law enforcement, Orlando police, the sheriff's deputies, as well as the FBI. You're taking a live look at that area right now where they are staging that press conference. We don't see anybody ready to step up to that podium just yet, but we are expecting to get some answers to questions that we have had now for hours since this shooting happened.
Chief John Mina from the Orlando Police Department, Mayor Buddy Dyer, and Orange County Sheriff Jerry Demings among those that are going to be speaking at this press conference. We've got a lot of questions still unanswered in terms of some of what happened overnight. Shots fired just around 2 o'clock in the morning. Many patients at that point in time brought to the hospital. At that point in time, we understand the shooter was inside the club. They had started firing shots inside the club. A couple hours later, we get confirmation that that shooter is dead. So what exactly was going on inside the nightclub for a couple hours is still unclear. Whether or not it was a hostage situation is still unclear. We do know that the bomb squad was called into that area. We do know a crisis negotiator was called into that area as well. But we got a couple hours later confirmation that the shooter inside the club was dead. At that point in time, Stuart Moore and Bob Keeling reporting from outside of ORMC. We could see more patients being brought to the hospital. Mass casualty situation. We don't know how many were killed. We don't know how many were injured. And we don't have any information on the shooter. We don't have any motive in this situation. We are just trying to get more information from that press conference that we showed you a live look at, where we're expecting to get more details. We know not all of those are going to be answered, but we're trying to get as much as we can filled in the blanks, including how some witnesses say there was a second shooter, and we have confirmation that just one shooter is dead. So that is one of the biggest questions this morning. Was there, in fact, a second shooter, as many witnesses are talking about, or is it just a chaotic scene that there was so much going on that they might have thought there was a second shooter there? Because the only thing we've heard of from police is we have confirmation that that one shooter is dead.
And witnesses are really filling in the blanks. Here is some video from the scene that one witness recorded and shared with us exclusively here on West 2. Let's take a listen to it.
Oh my God, people are getting shot, dude.
Get out of here.
Oh my God, dude.
Firing off shots.
And as you can hear from that video, just a number of gunshots. And the witnesses that we've spoke to throughout the morning have just been telling us different numbers. Some say they've heard 40 gunshots. Some say they heard 25 at one time. Someone said they heard 100 shots. This is stuff we just don't have confirmed at this time. But those are witness accounts that they have been reporting to us throughout the morning. Now, you're taking a live look over Pulse nightclub right now, where, as you can see, there is still a presence of law enforcement. This is a massive crime scene at this time. A number of witnesses, a number of victims, and police are trying to sort it all out. There was another shot here that we saw where there was a blown out window in the side of this nightclub, as well as this device that we were talking about just a little while ago in the parking lot, Brett, where it looks like some sort of robot. Usually when they bring out those kinds of devices, it's to survey the scene.
And I think it's a good thing we're seeing police so close to this nightclub. It gives us an indication they feel comfortable with what they've done in their searches on the inside. There's you can kind of see that robot there off to the side. The bomb squad was called in. Reason for that, we heard from witnesses saying that that shooter made remarks about a bomb, whether he was strapped with one or saying that he brought one with him. Witnesses were telling us that. We don't have that confirmed, but the bomb squad did show up. They did make that controlled detonation around 5 o'clock this morning, but about 5 hours now after this shooting, you're seeing a live picture on the left-hand side of your screen. Right-hand side of your screen, you're seeing those patients immediately following that shooting being taken to the hospital. But I think it's a good thing that we're seeing law enforcement with a level of comfort standing so close to this nightclub, because it indicates to us They have swept that area inside and out and feel good that there are no explosive devices. Clearly, you can't get anywhere near there. You can see the street is completely blocked off, as are much of the streets in downtown Orlando, completely blocked off. You're seeing a ton of law enforcement in that area. You're still seeing a lot of first responders in that area. We did see a lot of patients continue to being brought to the hospital hours after the shooting. But on the right-hand side of your screen, we saw pickup trucks, unmarked pickup trucks, with patients arriving at the hospital, and you can see all those doctors and the gurneys there as they continue to put those patients on board. Reason for that? They didn't have enough ambulances. That gives you an indication of what the response was to this mass shooting in downtown Orlando. They had ambulances, they had police cars, and they had other vehicles like this showing up just to bring more patients to the hospital.
And as you were saying, patients are being brought to the hospital. Their family members are waiting at the hospital to find out what happened to their loved ones, what condition they are in. And we heard Stuart and Bob mention just a little while ago that people were finally being allowed to be let into the hospital to start asking questions and find out more information about their loved ones who were inside the club or nearby when it happened. And I think we do now have some sound from a witness at the scene overnight. Let's listen to that.
I was helping somebody because he was laying down. I wasn't sure if he was dead or alive. And I was like, hey, are you alive? Hey, are you okay? He didn't speak English, but the person next to us who was helping us spoke, I don't know if it was Portuguese, but was able to get his name, and he went by Junior. I took my bandana off and put it in a knot, and I shoved it in his hole, the bullet hole that was in his back, because it didn't go through. It stayed in. Then the second person I helped, she got hit in the arm, and her name was Carlisha. And she came from Ohio as well, because I just moved here from Ohio. So moving here, this is my first nightclub, being here 2 months, and this is the experience.
So that was a witness that was live on the scene. Obviously, you heard his firsthand account. He was helping someone. And Brett, just like you were saying before, that gives you an idea of the scope of this, that people were wounded and innocent people standing around, people who were nearby, were helping those people who were injured in this shooting. You heard him say he was putting his bandana in a gunshot wound.
That gentleman we just heard from, his name is Christopher Hansen, and he was still in the area a couple hours after that. He just, you can understand, just an emotional night for him. He's treating people that have just been shot, and he's still in shock, just not knowing really what to do. He was staying around in that area for a couple hours trying to get more information about what exactly had happened. What exactly was he just a part of? Where someone storms into the club where he was and all of a sudden starts shooting, and then immediately he is now treating gunshot victims. So, you know, when this shooter opened fire, we saw so many people brought to the hospital. Some people probably went home still in shock, unable to go to sleep. And then Christopher Hansen, who by his account was helping some of those victims, was still there. I mean, he was still very emotional hours later when we spoke to him again about what he had seen and the people that he was caring about, still uncertain who was injured, who had been killed, who made it to the hospital, who was still inside the club. And again, we're getting a press conference here, a little bit delayed from the Orlando Police Department, where we're hoping to get some of those gaps filled in and some of the details filled in as, again, we take a live look over Club Pulse in downtown Orlando, near the corner of Orange and Cayley Avenue, the site of a deadly mass shooting from overnight. And as you said, Brett, we've been talking to witnesses and family members throughout the night. Obviously an emotional situation for people. Stuart Moore is live outside of ORMC. He's been there on the scene all morning. Stuart, do you have an update for us?
That's right, Michelle. And one thing that all those families have now been escorted inside of ORMC where they can find out whether or not their loved ones are here. But before that happened, there were dozens of them that were crowded around these corners trying to figure out exactly whether or not their loved ones were brought here after that mass casualty situation was happening over at the Pulse nightclub just a quarter mile away. And during that time, unbeknownst to all of the people that were standing here, Orlando police found a device that they wanted to detonate. And at that point, they did detonate it. People further closer to the club knew that this was about to happen, but people in this location did not know that that was about to happen. That happened on live TV, and it almost created a panic situation. Gunshots. He says several other people are also inside of that restroom with him. And just on live TV, I'm not sure if you guys were able to hear that back at the station. And Pete, we can point that direction, but we just heard a loud explosion that just happened coming from that direction. And that was a loud explosion that startled several people who were standing outside of the hospital waiting to find out more information. But police tell us that they were just detonating a device, but that just added to the hysteria and the panic that people were already experiencing at that time. Now everyone's still waiting to find out more information from law enforcement officers, and any moment we're hoping to hear from them. But also we've been hearing some of the stories of people who have found out some about their loved ones. One woman that we spoke to, her son still unaccounted for, but she says that his boyfriend was wounded several times and was rushed here to the hospital.
My son was at the nightclub with his boyfriend and other friends, and I know that his boyfriend has been shot multiple times and is in the emergency room. But I don't know where my son is. No one can tell me where my son is. If he's been shot, if he's dead, no one knows. But they told me there are fatalities.
And of course, that was one of the women that we spoke to this morning in that situation where she was waiting outside the hospital just trying to find out answers about her son. Guys, we're going to stay out here, and as soon as we find out more information from some of these people who were here. Back to you, Brett and Michelle.
All right, Stuart, thank you so much. And now we want to get to that press conference that we've been waiting for. It was supposed to happen at the top of the hour, but we were told that they are finally ready to start talking.
We're going to have a few updates this morning. We're going to have Mayor Dyer speak first, Chief Mina, Sheriff Demings will speak, and then Danny Banks with FDLE and Ron Harper with the FBI. They'll take a few questions afterward and answer what they can, but then we'll continue to provide updates as the day goes on.
Tonight, our community witnessed or experienced a very horrific crime. Many lives were lost and many more individuals were impacted by witnessing the crime. Many were saved, however, by the heroic efforts of the men and women of OPD, the Orange County Sheriff's Office, Seminole County Sheriff's Office. We have great cooperation from FDLE and the FBI, all our law enforcement agencies, fire departments from Orlando, Seminole County, and Orange County, and all of the hospital personnel that have been working through the night. We are a strong, resilient community. Tonight, we had a crime that will have a lasting effect on our community. We need to stand strong. We need to be supportive of the victims and their families. I'm going to ask Chief Mina to explain what happened.
Good morning. So at approximately 02:02 hours this morning, we had an officer working at Pulse nightclub who responded to shots fired. Our officer engaged in a gun battle with that suspect. The suspect at some point went back inside the club where more shots were fired. This did turn into a hostage situation. From there, obviously multiple officers from various agencies responded. SWAT team responded. At approximately 0500 hours this morning, the decision was made to rescue hostages that were in there. Our SWAT officers exchanged gunfire with the suspect. The suspect is dead. He appeared to be carrying a rifle, an assault-type rifle, and a handgun, and had some type of device on him. That's what we're doing right now, checking the area for devices. There are multiple people that are dead inside. I don't want to give anyone a number right now, but multiple people are dead inside Pulse nightclub, and at least 42 people have been transported to various hospitals around. So do not have an exact count. Obviously, our condolences go out to the friends and family. We're going to continue to work with the FBI and the Florida Department of Law Enforcement and the Orange County Sheriff's Office on this joint investigation. And at this time, I'll turn it over to the sheriff.
Thank you, Chief. While this certainly is a tragedy for our community, I will reiterate what Mayor Dyer said, that this community is resilient, and this is a time in which we all should come together. The Orange County Sheriff's Office responded along with the Orlando Police Department to the initial incident. There were deputy sheriffs involved with the Orlando police personnel on the initial entry just after 2 a.m. this morning. In addition to that, members of my hazardous device team responded and have been engaged in helping to secure the scene as well. We have had as many as about 100 of my personnel who have been actively engaged in this incident. I will also reiterate that this is a collaborative effort between our federal, state, and local law enforcement authorities. At this time, the Central Florida Intelligence Exchange Center has been activated. That is our intelligence sharing consortium for this region. We will be working along with the FBI as well as the other law enforcement agencies as this investigation continues. Again, what I would say to our community is that if you are aware of any of the activities that may have led up to this horrific scene, to share that information with your local law enforcement authorities. As we move forward, we will make every effort that we can to ensure that this community remains a safe and secure community. We have that commitment from all of the local law enforcement agencies. We have multiple sheriff's offices and police agencies who have committed to work to that endeavor. And if you see some suspicious type activity, we have shared with this community in the past that our expectation is that you say something about it if there's anything that looks unusual. At this point, this is an incident, as I see it, that we can certainly classify as a domestic terror incident. At this point, I believe the next speaker is going to be the supervisory agent in charge of the regional Florida Department of Law Enforcement Officer Danny Banks.
Thank you, Sheriff. I'll reiterate a couple of things that were already said, but importantly, I know one of the most important questions for the state and even nationally is, do we consider this an act of terrorism? Absolutely, we are investigating this from all parties' perspective as an act of terrorism. Anytime that we have potentially dozens of victims in any of our communities, that I think we can qualify that as a terrorist activity. Whether that's a domestic terrorist activity or an international one is certainly something we will get to the bottom of. We're glad to have the partnerships that we've already spoken about, particularly the partnership of the FBI here. One of the important things that obviously we'll get to the bottom of is, did we have any indicators before this event happened today? We will have some more information, I'm sure, forthcoming to all of you about who this individual is. Was he a lone wolf? Does he have any associates? Those are certainly all of the things that will be looked into now as part of our intelligence and investigative activities. You know, the state of Florida is a huge state, certainly for a lot of different reasons. One of them, tourism and our industry and our businesses here, and we have no suggestion that there's any threat to either of those, either today or in the near future. But that certainly is a concern. Right now it's important, the message we want to put out is we have no indication of other types of activities similar to last night's activity, either in the state of Florida or anywhere else in the nation right now. But we are putting every resource, collective resource that we have together to validate that statement and to ensure the safety of the remainder of our citizens, not only through today, but through the next weeks. As the sheriff said, I really want to reiterate the point. Our See Something, Say Something campaign is valid, it works, but we want to encourage people to use that. As you come up with and you're aware of information that is concerning to you, it's concerning to us. If you're aware of information relative to people, either conversations, social media, or actions of people in our community that you believe could threaten the rest of us, please let law enforcement know. Use those tools to let law enforcement be aware of that information so that we can act on it. I'll turn over the rest of the interview now to our Assistant Special Agent in charge for the FBI Orlando office, Ron Hopper.
Thank you, Danny. Let me start by saying I offer the condolences to all the friends and family members that are victims to this senseless, tragic act of violence this morning. FBI stands shoulder to shoulder with everyone you see here to address this matter. We are not just looking at this from one perspective. I will tell you that every resource in the FBI will be brought to bear on this investigation. And I would echo what Mr. Banks just said, in that at this particular time, there's no reason to believe, we have no credible or singular information to suggest that there's any further threat to Orlando or the surrounding area or anywhere else as it relates to this particular incident. I would caution everyone to be mindful that the FBI is known for slow, methodical, detailed investigations. We will follow the facts, we will see where they lead us to, and we will take them to the ultimate end. There's nothing we won't do to get to the bottom of this case, and we will be prepared to present any information we can when we can and are able to present it to you. We would look forward to being as completely transparent as possible. I will tell you that we here in the Orlando region, especially with the FBI and the partnerships we share here, we take that see something, say something one step further. If you see something and you say something, we will do something. So if you have some information, no matter how small you may think it may be, that would relate back to today's events, please share it with us. And I would urge you to call the 1-800-CALL-FBI public access line. We have phones standing by to take any type of lead or information whatsoever. We're conducting countless interviews, and you will be seeing a huge presence from the FBI in the coming days to resolve this matter. Thank you.
I did 4 questions. I did want to add a few more things. There were at least 9 officers that were involved in the shooting of the suspect. One of our officers was injured. It appears his Kevlar helmet saved his life. So he has a injury to his eye, but it looks like the bullet did hit his Kevlar helmet. So 9 officers involved in the shooting and 1 officer injured, but not that seriously. So it looks like that Kevlar helmet saved his life. So I think we'll take questions now.
What do you know about the gunman? Do you know anything?
We're going to turn everything about the gunman over to the FBI.
You said multiple injuries. Can you give us like 10, dozens? We've heard the number 20.
Yeah, it's we're looking probably in the range of 20, but we don't want to give you an exact figure. Like I said, multiple people transported to the hospital. Unfortunately, there are people. We're trying to clear that the Pulse nightclub of all of any devices. We did find a device on the suspect himself and possibly his car, so we're trying to clear all that. And unfortunately, there are some people who have succumbed to gunshot wounds, maybe around 20 inside of the nightclub.
Can you go into a little bit more detail about your timeline once you were able to stop the suspect and get in there? I know that you had some of the surviving victims off being interviewed.
Absolutely. So again, 0 to 100 hours. Our officer who's working extra duty there responds to the shots fired. He and then 2 other officers exchanged gunfire with the suspect. This developed into a hostage situation. Right about a little after 5 this morning, we made a decision to go in and rescue. We were being contacted by people in the bathroom nearby, at least 15 people that were in a separate area. And our biggest concern was future loss of life. We want to save those people. So we did an entry and exchanged gunfire with the suspect again after some explosive devices were used, as well as our Bearcat was used to get through the wall. And from there, we exchanged gunfire with the suspect, and he was dead at that scene. But officers did a great job. SWAT team did a great job. There were at least 30 people who were saved during that rescue.
Do you have any reasons to think that there's a connection to radical Islamic terror?
I would say at this time we're looking into all angles right now. We do have suggestions that that individual may have gleanings towards that particular ideology, but right now we can't say definitively, so we're still running everything to ground.
What about the fact that it was a gay nightclub? Any indications that it was an act against?
From what we know so far, we don't know that had any specific impact on the actions taken this evening. Not yet.
Can you clarify? You said about 42 were taken at the hospital, and there are approximately 20 dead inside the nightclub?
Yeah, about 42 taken to 3 area hospitals and approximately 20 dead inside the club. I don't want to give you an exact number until we have that.
The question was if it was tied to any type of terrorist activity or Islamic State activity, and we're always looking for any tie in any mass shooting situation such as this.
Chief, any relation to the shooting that we saw on Friday, because he was heavily armed as well, or no?
Absolutely not. There's no indication that this was related to the Christina Grimmie case.
The shooting, Sheriff, the shooting shot began inside, or did it start outside and went inside?
Right at the entrance, we believe. Yeah, it's all part of the investigation.
Did the suspect shoot himself, or was it one of your officers?
Our officers shot the suspect.
There's no bomb threat right now?
We're checking the area. There were some devices found, unknown if those are real or not. So the Orange County explosive team is checking for devices right now.
Can you characterize the shooter? Is this somebody who just came here to randomly shoot at people, or was he organized and well prepared for what he planned to do?
It appears he was organized and well prepared.
Do you know more area?
Description of the shooter.
I don't have the exact description right now.
Is he local?
He's not from this area.
Is he a U.S. citizen, or is he from the United States, or what do you know?
Can't comment on whether he's a U.S. citizen or not this time because we're still trying to positively identify him as the suspect.
And what makes you think he might have like terrorist leanings, or what you just said?
We're looking in all leads right now. We don't leave any stone unturned. So I said there's a possibility. We will look at everything.
Was there any shots fired near ORMC? Parents were saying they heard something.
Yeah, there was a report of shots fired near RMC. That turned out to be not true. There was some type of disturbance related to all the people who were responding, but that was taken care of pretty quickly, but no shots fired at RMC.
What about witness accounts of the second shooter?
No witness accounts of second shooters that we're aware of.
Can you talk about that initial incident with your officer? You said there was an officer that was at the club. Can you talk about that initial interaction between your officer and the guy?
Right, so the officer was working extra duty in full uniform at the nightclub. At about 0200 hours, he responded to gunfire, and at that point engaged in a gun battle with the suspect, unknown if he hit the suspect with that time. Two other officers were nearby and also engaged the suspect as well. And like I said, we don't know if he was hit during that exchange, but that did turn into a hostage situation, and obviously the SWAT team and multiple agencies responded.
Do you have any indication of whether the gunman continued to shoot people inside after he went back in the second time?
That's all part of the investigation.
How many hostages were there?
Unknown at this time. We had indications that were approximately 320 people total in the club when it was open tonight. Like I said, we rescued about 30 people. About 42 people were transported to area hospitals.
Can you take us through just one more time how you guys move in that type of situation?
Yeah, absolutely. So we were getting contacted by multiple people from within inside the club who were alive and in a separate part of the club. So we made the decision to do an explosive entry on the outside of the club to get to those people. We also used the armored vehicle to help defeat that wall, and from there we were able to rescue people, and our SWAT team at that time encountered the suspect somewhere in that area near one of the doorway entrances and shot and killed him.
And that was the noise we heard.
Yeah, the noises that you heard when you're out here were two distractionary devices. Yeah.
Did that burst the door to make the wall open?
Well, many times SWAT team members use distractionary devices just for that, to distract the suspect to gain that advantage.
We'll take 2 more questions. Do you know what the condition is with the 42 that are hospitalized right now? Critical?
Yeah, all being treated for gunshot wounds. I can't give the exact conditions.
What about the device? I know you said that there was a possible bomb threat. Were you at all concerned about shooting someone who possibly had a bomb?
Well, our officers, SWAT officers, highly trained for that situation, but we take all that into account. Thank you.
Chief, there's a number of agencies here now. What is the very next step for all of these agencies working on?
Well, obviously, we're all going to work together to investigate this from start to finish. The FBI will be the lead investigative agency for this incident. Florida Department of Law Enforcement will assist with the actual officer-involved shooting portion of the case.
You said device several times. Did you say a bomb?
Oh, no, we just know that he has something on him that is, we'll say, suspicious device at this time, so we're trying to verify that.
Okay, we'll plan for the next update to be at 9:30, but we'll keep you guys updated and plan. And it'll be here.
Okay, thank you.
inside of the Pulse nightclub. Those shots were fired at 2 o'clock this morning. You heard the chief mention that there was a uniformed police officer working there that initially engaged in gunfire with that shooter, and then the SWAT team was then called in. And we did hear those loud explosive devices, the chief calling them those distractionary devices. I believe that's one of the ones we heard around 5 o'clock this morning live on the air when we were reporting outside of the club. So it appears that a bit was around the time when they were able to get inside the club, which means that if shots were fired at 2, we started hearing those explosive devices go off at 5. There was about 3 hours in between there where there was a hostage situation, as the chief described it. Numbers here quickly for you before we kind of get to more of this. 42 are in the hospital, all with gunshot wounds. Unclear the severity of those. And as the chief mentioned, around 20 people were killed, about 20 people dead still inside the club, which obviously is a huge processing scene right now. I want to go back to those distractionary devices that we heard live on the air. This is around 5 o'clock this morning when the chief said they started to break into the wall. They used this as a device to distract that shooter when they went in there and stormed in.
Gunshots. He says several other people are also inside of that restroom with him. And just on live TV, I'm not sure if you guys were able to hear that back at the station. And Pete, we can point that direction, but we just heard a loud explosion that just happened coming from that direction. Now, we have been seeing some...
So as you just heard, so that was from earlier this morning when Stuart Moore was live on TV. The distractionary explosion that was heard in the background. We heard Chief John Mina talking about how they sometimes use this type of distraction to distract the suspect inside while they try to go into the crime scene area. Now, we just got a lot of new information out of that press conference that was held between Orlando Police, the Sheriff's Office, and also the FBI. And so what we do know now is that there was an exchange of gunfire between Orlando Police and this suspect. We did know before that the suspect was dead. We also know that one of the officers was injured in the shootout, but Chief John Mina said that his Kevlar helmet likely saved his life. He does have an injury to his eye. We want to get out live now to Michelle Meredith, who was also at that press conference. Michelle, what more information are you getting this morning?
Well, as you heard, we got the very bad news that possibly 20 people were killed. We know that 42 people were transported to the hospital in this deadly shooting. Now, I want to show you, this is the first look we have gotten of this club, the Pulse. Do you see that black sign with the big P? That's where this happened. Now, they told us in the news conference it started about shortly after 2. There was, as you heard, a uniformed officer in the club working. And then the shooter, they tell us the suspect started shooting pretty much at the doorway. That officer returned fire. At some point, there were 9 officers in the club returning fire, and we understand one officer was injured, but he was wearing a helmet, and that saved his life. They tell us that at one point, they were getting phone calls from people who were being held hostage in the club, phone calls that they were hurt. So they made a decision to rescue those people. You heard them say that they drove a big truck apparently through the wall. That big boom we heard approximately at 5 o'clock, that was done to distract him, is what they're telling us. They're telling us this suspect was armed with what appeared to be an assault rifle, a handgun, and they're telling us they're not committing to some kind of explosive device. Is this an act of terror? They did not rule it out. They tell us that they'll give us more information about the shooter, but they're trying to find out more. Who he is was he a lone wolf? What was his motive? They tell us that the bomb squad did find some kind of device, and I'll tell you, when we got here, again, the police presence, unbelievable. We've got the Orange County Sheriff's Office. We've got OPD. We've got the Ocoee Police Department. I saw Orange County Mayor Teresa Jacobs come to the news conference. She didn't speak, but she looked very distraught. And I think the chief said it best when he said, this shooting will have a lasting effect on this community. Live in Orlando, Michelle Meredith, WESH 2 News.
Michelle, thank you. The Orange County Sheriff Jerry Demings calling this a domestic terror incident. The FBI is handling the investigation in respects to the shooter. Important to point out, the FBI is saying no indication that they have any other threat either in Orlando or in the state of Florida right now. No information provided on the name of that shooter right now or the motive, something that they are all looking into at this point in time.
The one thing that they did say about the shooter is they said that it appears as he was well organized and well prepared for this attack. And they also did mention that he is not from this area. But again, we don't know much about him, where he is from. We do now want to go out live to Stuart Moore, who has been following this story from the very beginning. Stuart, you are live at ORMC. Have you talked to any more people out there this morning?
Well, Michelle, all those witnesses or the people, the family members have been rushed into the hospital. That happened about an hour ago so that they could find out the latest on their loved ones. But just behind the camera vantage point, you can't see it at this point, but the police supplied bus that transported so many of those witnesses who were inside the club. Some of the 30 people that the police chief said were rescued as they were inside the club is just now returning to that scene, potentially going to pick up more witnesses who can describe the horrors in which they saw. Now, we did speak to a person who was actually outside across the street from the nightclub, actually at the gas station, when the shooting first began. They said that they heard a commotion going on. That's when they turned on their phone, and then they heard those gunshots.
Oh my God, people are getting shot, dude.
Get out of here.
Oh my God, dude.
This guy's firing off shots.
Oh my God.
And obviously those shots continued as that person exchanged gunfire with Orlando police officers who were first at that scene and first to respond. That's when that person, as the police chief mentioned, went inside of that building and several people were continually shot. As the police chief mentioned, 43 people, at least 43 people, transported to ORMC, which is just less than a half a mile away from the nightclub, more than approximately 20 people as well. So we also have a witness that we know that was inside of the club, and that person actually had a friend who was locked in one of those bathrooms. That's one of the reasons why the police chief said the SWAT team entered in the first place, because of people like this guy who was injured and waiting inside the bathroom for rescue.
We heard gunshots. They said that they were actually like, it was just like a joke, which technically it wasn't. Everybody was on the floor. They went up again. They were about to leave, but then the gunshot came again. We scrawled all the way down to we were crawling in the club or whatnot. That's pretty much it. We have still friends in there. We actually have two friends in there. One has a wounded on his leg, and then the other one on the arm.
You've heard from both of them, though?
One of them, the one with the hand wounded, he feels like he's gonna die in there.
How lucky do you feel to be alive?
Oh, I feel lucky to be here with you.
And we are not sure whether or not those two people that man was looking for were able to get to the hospital. We have not seen him because all those family members, as we mentioned, have now been escorted inside of ORMC and have not returned out at this point. But we will continue to follow this breaking story as it continues to happen at this location and find out more information. We'll pass it on to you. Reporting live in Orlando, Stuart Moore, West 2 News.
All right, Stuart, thank you. Just so many different viewpoints in all of this. Obviously, there are law enforcement out there at the scene. There are first responders. There are eyewitnesses. There are victims in all of this. We've heard from many eyewitnesses this morning that helped those that were hit by gunfire. Important to point out, because there was a discrepancy about this for really a couple of hours this morning after those shots were fired at 2 o'clock, that there were in fact two shooters, and Chief John Mina clearing up the fact there is only one shooter. Some eyewitnesses that we had spoken to seemed to give the indication that there were two shooters. A little bit understandable considering the chaos inside of that club with more than 300 people there, and that shooter coming in, as the chief said, with more than just one gun. So it's unclear as to exactly what happened in there. But I do also want to point out, those shots were fired at 2 o'clock this morning. We're going to go actually to Michelle Meredith before I finish up that point. She's live outside of the hospital with more. Michelle?
And I'm here with Terry DiCarlo. And Terry, can you give me your position, your title?
I'm the executive director of the LGBT Center of Central Florida.
And what do you know about the situation?
Well, I'm hearing just what you're hearing right now. We do know, as they said in the press conference, that there's about 20 dead inside the club, and about 40 have been taken to hospital. And this is just devastating. It's just hard to wrap our heads around right now. We have a full force from the LGBT Center working right now, trying to get counselors together for our community and finding out and doing what we can to help our community members. This is unfathomable. Something like this could happen here in Orlando.
What kind of event was going on tonight at the Pulse?
It was just a regular nightclub, a regular dance nightclub event. As any night, people out celebrating, having a good time on a Saturday night. I'm sorry, it just makes no sense.
So you told me earlier about the phone calls that you were getting.
You were getting phone calls?
My phone calls, the phone was going off. It roused me up, people calling and just saying, what the heck is going on, and there's, you've got to get down to Pulse, and that's why I jumped up and, we got into action and got down here to find out what's going on, to find out what's happening with our community members and making sure our people are okay. We're going to make our way down to the hospital and see who's there and what we can do.
I noticed, Terry, that you were shaking.
It's unconscionable to think that something. Now, I've talked to the police and the FBI, and how can you not say that this was an attack on the LGBT community when it's done in an LGBT club and a shooter walks in and there's 20 of your community members laying in a club and another 40 laying in hospital gurneys right now. How can you not shake? You can't imagine something like this happening. But we're here, and we've got people on the phones, and we got people working on it, and it's just, it's just unfathomable right now. It'll come to grips in a little bit, but right now it's just, the head is just going.
And your personal thoughts at this time, Terry?
Of course, our thoughts go out to the families of all our community members, and my personal thoughts are angry, mad, but we have a great police force here that's going to keep us informed of what's going on, and we'll move forward from there. But just angry and sad. So many emotions are happening right now.
Well, Terry, I thank you very much for talking to us. And as you can see, we just finished the news conference, and there's still so much emotion this morning. And we're hoping to get more information and bring it to you as soon as we can. But you heard the chief say that we believe that at least 20 people have died, 42 are in the hospital, and the chief told us that the approximately 20 who have died are still in the Pulse nightclub, which is right down the street. It's that sign, big black sign with the P. I'm live in Orlando. Michelle Meredith, WESH 2 News.
All right, Michelle, thank you so much. So let's just talk a little bit about the investigation going forward. Obviously, you heard Michelle just say that there are bodies still in that nightclub at this time. This is a very large crime scene. So what we heard before from Orlando Police, sheriff's deputies, and the FBI is that going forward, they're going to be looking into whether there were any indicators before this event happened overnight. They want to know, was there any indication that this was going to happen, any warning signs that they could have been looking out for? They're also calling this, like we said before, they're classifying it as domestic terrorism. They said anytime there is any sort of mass shooting, they consider it a form of terrorism, whether domestic, just because there is such a large number of casualties. Now, they also said that the FBI is going to be leading in this investigation. They said they're going to bring in every possible resource to help out with this investigation so that they can get answers. And it's also a good reminder at this time, as they mentioned, it's always good to be alert. if you see something, say something. And the FBI says if that does happen, they're going to take action and they're going to see the investigation through to the very end. And as you heard Michelle, she was interviewing someone from the LGBT community of Central Florida, the Center of Central Florida. They are going to be looking into whether or not this is a hate crime because of the club where it happened, because it is a gay club. So that is one of the avenues they are going to be looking into going forward in this investigation.
You know, as you take a live look above the nightclub right now, those shots were fired at 2 o'clock, a little after 2 o'clock this morning. Chief Mina telling us they finally stormed in, exchanged gunfire with that shooter at 5 o'clock this morning. That leaves a 3-hour window where there was essentially, as he refers to it, a hostage situation going on. A crisis negotiator was brought to the scene. So for 3 hours, this gunman was apparently inside this nightclub after opening fire with an assault rifle, did have a handgun and some other device that we're still unclear of what exactly that shooter had on them. You know, by all accounts, we haven't heard from anyone that we have spoken to that was inside the nightclub from that 2 to 5 a.m. range when all of that was going on, when apparently this shooter was still alive holding these people hostage. But you heard John Mina talk about how their SWAT team was able to create a distraction elsewhere. They storm into that nightclub, begin to exchange gunfire, and that's when that shooter is taken out past 5 o'clock this morning. But it gives that 3-hour window when all of those people were still inside there. The chief's saying there's 20 people still, around 20 dead still inside there right now. So that is very difficult to even process or imagine the scene that was inside there, presumably with people dead around you, that shooter still alive. And you heard the chief mention they were getting communication, whether that was from a phone call or a text message to police, letting them know we still have people that are alive here inside of this club. Because remember, it started out with 320 people, around 320 people that were in there, and those numbers, 42 brought to the hospital, around 20 still dead inside the nightclub right now. The police talking, this is Chief Mina from maybe 20 minutes ago. Let's listen in on what he has to say.
At approximately 0500 hours this morning, the decision was made to rescue hostages that were in there. Our SWAT officers exchanged gunfire with the suspect. The suspect is dead. He appeared to be carrying a rifle, an assault-type rifle, and a handgun.
All right, it is 7:46 right now. We also have some sound from Mayor Buddy Dyer. Is this sound from before or is this live? This is on tape from earlier today, just about a half hour ago when he was speaking at that press conference. Let's listen to what he had to say this morning.
We are a strong, resilient community. Tonight, we had a crime that will have a lasting effect on our community. We need to stand strong. We need to be supportive of the victims and their families.
So that was Mayor Buddy Dyer also speaking at that press conference. Again, we had Chief John Mina, Mayor Buddy Dyer, and Sheriff Jerry Demings, also the FBI, Ron Hopper taking up the podium this morning. They're all talking about this. And it's one thing we should point out that Mayor Buddy Dyer just touched on, that they are going to do everything they can, they say, to keep this community safe and secure going forward now. They want people to be able to feel safe in this community. It has been a difficult weekend, though.
Yeah, and also to point out, because, you know, Orlando, obviously Central Florida, a lot of people in town here from out of state, whether you're at the attractions or the beach or anything else. And while this is called a domestic terror incident, the FBI, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, the Orange County Sheriff, the Orlando Police Chief, all reiterating this morning, there's no indication of any other threat, whether that's in the Orlando area, the Central Florida area, or throughout the state, because we do have so many people that are visiting here from out of town and might be waking up to this morning and hearing about this in downtown Orlando. So the FBI is saying they're going to put every resource they have available to this Orlando incident. And we are expecting another update here at 9:30 because we do have limited information. We really have no information about who this shooter is or a potential motive in this deadly shooting.
And they're promising transparency in this investigation. They said at this point they're conducting interviews with witnesses, people who were there, because they need as much information as they can get. Also, it's good to mention earlier this morning, they said if you were at the club at the time of the shooting, they want you to go to police headquarters. They need to hear from you. Any information you have could be valuable in this investigation. And they're also still on the scene at the Pulse nightclub, which you're looking live over right now from our chopper. They are looking at that crime scene and still sorting things out. We want to go now live to Bob Keeling. Bob, what do you have for us this morning?
Michelle, we're just on the perimeter near the nightclub where you can see an Orange County Sheriff's deputy is standing guard. There is law enforcement like this up and down the communities here in the surrounding area of the nightclub. Now, right around 5 o'clock, as we understand that police engaged this gunman, our photojournalist Frank Burt was very close to that scene in a safe area, but he did manage to record the audio of this shootout, and it is devastating. Take a listen. Those were the shots fired by Orlando SWAT teams as they finally, now that we've heard, went in and engaged this gunman who they're describing as well organized and not from this area. They did mention that one of their officers probably had his life saved by his Kevlar helmet, apparently a bullet bouncing off of his helmet. And the enormity of these numbers is just beginning to sink in. If indeed the number of dead turns out to be 20 or something in that area, this is by far the worst mass shooting in the city's history, and in fact, one of the worst, if not the worst, in this state's history as well. And it's hard not to think of all of those people that we've been talking with all morning at the hospital, wondering about, sons, daughters, friends, loved ones. Now that we've gotten this awful news that there are some 20 people dead, who apparently, some of the bodies of which are still inside this nightclub. And as we've heard, the FBI is on scene here now looking into whether indeed this is a gay-related hate crime. They'll be looking into that as to many other aspects. But again, just to be able to hear the audio of that confrontation where police finally took out this shooter adds to the enormity of this situation. Let's go back to you.
All right, Bob, thank you so much. And since Bob was mentioning that there were family members waiting at or trying to get into ORMC earlier this morning, the hospital did send out a message that they have established a meeting area for family members who believe that they do have somebody, a loved one, being treated at the hospital. So they said that if you do think that there's someone that you know, you are asked to go to the main entrance of ORMC's new North Tower. That's at 52 West Underwood Street. You'll be escorted to the area where you need to go, and you do need identification to get into the hospital, so make sure you are prepared if you do need to go there at this time. And right now you're taking live looks over the scene on the left-hand side of your screen. That's our chopper view, and from the street view on the right-hand side of your screen. And just to recap here, this all started around 2 o'clock this morning, and it is important to note that, Brett, earlier we had been reporting there was some sort of discrepancy of if there was one shooter or two shooters. We do now know confirmation from Chief John Mina that there is one shooter. We don't know much about who he is, but they did say that he was well prepared for this attack today, and they said that he was carrying an assault-type rifle, a handgun, and possibly some sort of device. And they are still sweeping this crime scene to find out if there are any more devices or any devices inside of it at this time. And it's important to note that this area is blocked off. If you need to go downtown in this area of Orange Avenue, you're not going to be able to get down there today.
Yeah, and you see that police presence that's still outside of the club. That's because of that number you see on your screen, around 20 dead. They are still inside. That is according to Police Chief John Mina, giving you an indication of just the type of scene and mass killing that they are dealing with this morning. Those 42 others that have been brought to the hospital, all with gunshot wounds. We don't have really any details on any of those folks, given the types of injuries. We know they have gunshot wounds, but we're not sure how serious some of those wounds are. We've heard from some witnesses from inside that club that immediately helped out some of those that were shot inside there. But as we pan out, you can begin to see, you know, the areas that are blocked off in downtown Orlando. Let's go back out live now to Stuart Moore. He's been at this scene all overnight. Stuart, you've been outside that hospital now for a couple hours this morning. We saw more patients taken to you after that SWAT team, which we just heard that gunfire interaction. After that SWAT team went in there into the nightclub to rescue those folks out of there, we did see another wave of people brought to the hospital, which was a couple hours after that shooter initially started to open fire. What's it been like out at the scene now? Has it started to calm down at all, or are they still bringing patients into that area?
We have not seen any more patients brought to this area for several hours now, Brett, but and it has also calmed down just because those family members that were all hanging out right outside of the emergency room were then taken inside of the main entrance at the hospital. One of the major things that we also witnessed out here as well was the tremendous amount of body bags that were brought from inside of the hospital, loaded up, and then potentially probably taken to Pulse nightclub. We couldn't get a good count as to how many it possibly was, but it is part of this story that continues to develop. As the police chief mentioned, approximately 20 or so dead. It could be more than that, could be less than that, but that's around the figure that we're currently working with. Now, one of the people who was standing outside of the hospital, she said that her son's boyfriend was shot multiple times, rushed to the hospital, taken inside, and that's where he was receiving treatment, but she had not heard from her son at all throughout this whole ordeal. She had very emotional comments to tell us this morning as she was just searching for answers.
Everybody like crazy. My son tried to escape or something like that. And when that happened, they shot my son 3 times. But they shot him like crazy. Some of the people was in the bathroom, like his friend. You know,
hiding?
Yeah. She was over there. She just get out. You know, after they was safe. After that, when I was over here waiting and waiting, I hear a shot in this area in front of the hospital, or I don't know, maybe inside of the hospital, because I hear that somebody tried to shot people in the hospital. Also, I hear a shot in this side, in the back of the hospital, and the police, you know, they try to control the situation.
Well, Mrs. Ramos,
I'm still waiting.
Still waiting.
I called to Massachusetts to, you know, to be in contact with the family.
Well, we're certainly hoping for the best for you and for your son and for your family.
And then I called I'm working with that office. I called her that maybe Monday I can be working because of the situation. I don't know if my son is going to be in life.
That's just another mother. It wasn't even the one that we were originally talking about, because they all have so many of the same type of stories that we have heard since we've been out here. But now, again, all those family members taken inside of the hospital. I'm not going to show you here, but some of these locations on the sidewalk, you can actually see some of the blood drops because people, when the hysteria first began, some of those people actually ran from Pulse nightclub just to get to the hospital, to get the treatment that they needed, carrying each other so they could get in here. So still a very intense situation as those family members work to find out whether or not their loved ones were taken here. One of those 43 people that were transported, or could possibly be one of the approximately 20 that were located inside of Pulse that did not make it out alive. We're, of course, going to continue to follow the latest developments on this story and give you updates throughout the day. Reporting live in front of RMC, Stuart Moore, West 2 News.
All right, Stuart, thank you so much. Obviously, just an emotional morning, an emotional overnight, and this is now hours after the original shooting began. These people are still waiting for information. As you heard that woman say, she wasn't sure where her son was, which is just, you know, devastating for family members who are waiting at the hospital trying to figure out exactly what happened here. You're taking a live look over the scene right now. There is a large police presence, FBI, sheriff, and they even said firefighters from different counties, Seminole County, are all here to help with this effort, to help with this crime scene. The scale of it is massive. There were originally 320 people inside of that club. And just to give you some numbers, Chief John Mina said approximately 20 people dead still inside that nightclub that you're looking live over right now. 42 people taken to 3 local hospitals to be treated for injuries. He's saying they're gunshot wounds. He's not saying the conditions that they're in at this time. So those are the numbers that we have right now. And throughout the night, we've been getting different witness accounts, also video into our station. We do have some sound of the actual shooting that we can listen to right now.
Oh my God, people are getting shot, dude.
Get out of here.
Oh my God, dude.
Firing off shots.
That is from 2 o'clock this morning when that shooter opened fire, and from 2 to 5, that shooter was still inside that nightclub, presumably with many of the victims that were killed in all of this and those that were rescued. There was a hostage situation in this nightclub while many of you were sleeping overnight. There was a crisis negotiator that was brought out to this scene until the SWAT team stormed in at 5 in the morning and took that shooter out. So for 3 hours, many people who were rescued today were inside of that club with a mass killer for a couple of hours, surrounded by some people that had also been killed and others that were shot that would later go to the hospital. They were inside there with wounds for a couple of hours before that SWAT team got in there and took that shooter out after you just heard that gunfire from 2 o'clock this morning. We're going to have much more as this special continues here as we stick with WESH 2 News.
Local, live, late breaking. This is WESH 2 News Sunrise in high definition.
It's 8 o'clock now on your Sunday morning. Thank you for joining us on WESH 2 News Sunrise. If you're just waking up this morning, we've been following a developing story throughout the morning. There has been a mass shooting at a nightclub in downtown Orlando. This is Pulse Nightclub. Starting around 2 o'clock this morning, a shooter, according to police, walked into this club and started firing. We're still getting information about what happened. We were briefed just about less than an hour ago from Orlando Police, Orange County Sheriffs, and the FBI. And what we know right now, the numbers are around 20 people are dead. The bodies still in this nightclub that you're taking a live look over right now in downtown Orlando. 42 people taken to local hospitals, 3 area hospitals. We don't know the extent of their injuries at this time. We do know there was one shooter. Earlier, we had reports that there may have been a possible second shooter. We now know that is not the case. One shooter, and the investigation now, as they comb through this crime scene, is who this guy is, why he wanted to do this, what the motive is he a lone wolf? And they did say that he was well prepared for this style attack, assault rifle, a handgun, an explosive device, and they're now looking into whether or not there were any indicators before today that he was going to be carrying out this attack here in Orlando overnight.
If you live in Central Florida, you're waking up this morning to what law enforcement is calling a domestic terror incident after a shooter stormed into this club just after 2 o'clock this morning and held those people hostage, many of them inside there, held them hostage for a couple hours before the SWAT team stormed in at 5 o'clock this morning and was able to take that shooter out after those that were still stuck inside that club were reaching out to police, letting them know that some were still alive in there. The SWAT team was able to go in there. How were they able to do that? Well, they created distractionary explosions. One of those explosions was when we were on the air at 5 o'clock this morning. Now, before we get to this, the police chief telling us they use these distractions as the sound, and then the SWAT team storms in and starts exchanging with that gunfire, taking him out. About what you're going to hear, 5 o'clock this morning, one of those devices going off. Take a listen.
Gunshots. He says several other people are also inside of that restroom with him. And just on live TV, I'm not sure if you guys were able to hear that back at the station. And Pete, we can point that direction, but we just heard a loud explosion that just happened coming from that direction.
So that was around 5 o'clock this morning when Stuart Moore was live on TV. But even earlier than that, when the shooting began, witnesses were pulling out their cell phones like witnesses often do these days and were recording the gunshots as they were happening. We have that exclusive video for you right here. Let's play that.
Oh my God, people are getting shot, dude.
Get out of here.
Oh my God, dude.
Firing off shots.
obviously just rapid fire at that time, 2 o'clock in the morning. That is on tape from a witness. And we just got an update less than an hour ago from law enforcement in the area. Local, state, and federal law enforcement are now working on this mass shooting to figure out why it happened and to comb through that crime scene. And we do have Michelle Meredith live at the scene of where the press conference was. Michelle, can you give us any more details as to what law enforcement said about this shooting?
Well, as you heard in the news conference, they're telling us that approximately 20 people are dead, and they're also telling us that most of them are inside still the Pulse Club, and we've got a picture of it from down the street here. As they said in the news conference, about 2 o'clock this morning, the suspect started firing shots. He was approximately at the door of the club. There was a police officer on duty there. He returned fire. At one point, there were up to 9 officers there returning fire, the SWAT team, we understand. We understand that people inside the club were calling the police department, telling them they've been injured, telling them they were hurt. They made a decision to go in and try to rescue the people who were inside, and they eventually killed the suspect. They also used this truck to burst the wall in, and as you heard in the video, they used these explosives to distract him. We're looking for more information on the shooter, who he is. They do believe he was acting alone, but they have to confirm he was a lone wolf. They said he was armed with an assault rifle, a handgun, and possibly an explosive device. They're telling us the suspect was not from this area and that they're going through his car as we speak. They're sweeping the club to see if possibly there are more explosive devices. Right before the news conference, we saw a bomb squad truck coming down Orange Avenue, and we heard an FBI rep tell us that they have not ruled out an act of terrorism.
There's nothing we won't do to get to the bottom of this case, and we will be prepared to present any information we can when we can and are able to present it to you. We would look forward to being as completely transparent as possible.
Now, the Orlando Police Department tells us they will have another briefing at 9:30. Live in Orlando, Michelle Meredith, WESH 2 News.
All right. Thank you so much, Michelle. And it is important also to note that at that press conference where local, state, and federal law enforcement were updating us, they said they do not believe that there is any indication that there are further threats to our area related to this mass shooting. So that is some good news here this morning. They believe he was acting alone, but they are still looking into who exactly this person is that carried out this mass shooting at Pulse nightclub in downtown Orlando overnight.
We can also show you that exchange of gunfire when the SWAT team moved in at 5 o'clock this morning. Police Chief John Meaning let us know that's when they were able to take that suspect out. These pictures right here are from even earlier this morning, so pre-5 o'clock this morning. You can see officers with guns drawn. This is, I believe, during that entire hostage situation taking place between 2 and 5 o'clock this morning when that negotiator was brought in, that shooter opening fire going inside that club and holding people hostage inside of that club. And then 3 hours after they initially opened fire is when police were able to go take that shooter out. And you heard Police Chief John Mina saying they rescued about 30 people from inside of there. So we do have some video as well of the shots and that exchange of gunfire when they were able to go in there. Is that what we have right now? Okay. Okay, so what you are before, as we gather that, what you're looking at too, this is between 2 and 3 o'clock this morning when officers and first responders and even Good Samaritans are just helping out, getting those victims to the hospital. Is this person being loaded on a pickup truck? They didn't have enough ambulances. Police cruisers were taking people to the hospital. This unmarked pickup was taking people to the hospital. There were so many victims in this mass shooting, 42 that we know of right now that were injured, that were taken to the hospital, that basically using whatever vehicle was available to get those folks to medical attention.
And I believe we do have that piece of video that you were asking for when the SWAT team was exchanging gunfire. Do we have that right now? So that was the SWAT response as it was happening. This was shot by our very own Frank Burt this morning. And we do know also that the suspect, the shooter, was killed in gunfire with these officers. And 9 officers specifically were involved in this shootout with him. One officer was actually injured, has an injury to his eye, although he was wearing a Kevlar helmet, which Police Chief John Mina said likely saved his life during the shootout.
And we've heard from so many people this morning, first responders, law enforcement, eyewitnesses to this account. One of the areas that we really haven't heard from is during that hostage situation, that 3-hour standoff really that was going on inside Pulse nightclub from witnesses that were inside. We don't exactly have details as to what was going on inside there when that shooter was still alive with some of those folks that were rescued from that SWAT team barging in there and taking them out. Some of those people were taken to the hospital, which means that if they were hit by gunfire at 2 o'clock in the morning, they didn't get to the hospital till after 5 in the morning. So they were injured from a gunshot, but they were unable to get medical attention because of this hostage situation going on for so many hours in the morning, as you're looking again at that standoff that was taking place while many of you were sleeping.
And we do know that while that hostage situation was going on, police were getting phone calls from people inside of the nightclub saying, hey, we have people here alive, we have people here hurt, and we have people here dead. And so those phone calls, text messages, however they got in touch with the police department, that is what led police to really make the decision that they had to act at that moment. So that is when they went in, they caused that distractionary device. That was the explosion you heard around 5 o'clock this morning, live with our very own Stuart Moore, who was reporting live on TV at that moment. And actually, we want to go out live right now to Stuart, who has been at the hospital. You've been there watching family try to go in. Have there been any developments at your scene right now?
We've seen a couple things in just the past couple of minutes. I want to show you this first because this is still at this going on right now. FBI agents have just arrived at the hospital and they're starting to walk in potentially to interview some of those people who were wounded during this mass shooting and gather more information. The hospital remains on lockdown at this hour with several different agencies, Orange County, Orlando Police, and Orlando Health Security, all on guard, making sure that no one that's not supposed to be here is able to get inside at this point. We did also just see 5 different medical examiner vehicles, the vehicles that pick up people when they have died, leave the hospital, heading towards Pulse to pick up those victims who were a part of this mass casualty situation. Now, earlier this morning, we spoke to a woman who was still trying to hear from her son, who she had not been able to get in contact with. She knew he was at the club, and she got very emotional just thinking about the fact that he could still possibly be inside waiting for help.
Everybody like crazy. My son tried to escape or something like that. And when that happened, they shot my son 3 times. But they shot him like crazy. And some of the people was in the bathroom, like his friend. You know,
hiding?
Yeah. She was over there. She just get out. You know, after they was safe. After that, when I was over here waiting and waiting, I hear a shot in this area in front of the hospital, or I don't know, maybe inside of the hospital, because I hear that somebody tried to shoot people in the hospital. Also, I hear a shot in this side, in the back of the hospital, and the police, you know, they try to control this situation.
Well, Mrs. Ramos,
I'm still waiting.
Still waiting.
I called to Massachusetts to, you know, to be in contact with the family.
Well, we're certainly hoping for the best for you and for your son and for your family.
And then I called I'm working with that office. I called her that maybe Monday I can be working because of the situation. I don't know if my son is going to be in life.
And that was just one of the women who was standing out here, now escorted inside of the hospital to find out the latest on her son. We also spoke to another mom who did not hear from her son at all. She knew that his boyfriend was inside the club with him. He was shot several times and was rushed into surgery, but she was not able to get in contact with her son. She had some also equally emotional comments to make this morning.
My son was at the nightclub with his boyfriend and other friends. And I know that his boyfriend has been shot multiple times and is in the emergency room. But I don't know where my son is. No one can tell me where my son is. If he's been shot, if he's dead, no one knows. But they told me there are fatalities.
And you haven't heard from him? You haven't gotten a phone call?
We texted him, called him, and he's not answering the phone. But he was sitting right next to his boyfriend, and his boyfriend definitely was shot with multiple gunshots and taken in the ambulance. So another friend who was in the bathroom at the time said he heard over 100 shots, and it was still active. They weren't taking any bodies out of the club because they had a potential bomb in there. So I don't know if he's still in the club, if he's incapacitated, if he's dead, or if he's being worked on here at the hospital.
And you could just hear the emotion that was coming from her. A lot of information earlier this morning was uncertain because we had not heard from police at that point. But obviously now those families have been taken inside the hospital. They are finding out news about their loved ones, potentially whether or not they're here. One of the 42 or so that were shot, or one of the 20 that was possibly killed as well. They are working on making those first notifications to those family members. Michelle and Brett, still a developing story out here. Several different agencies that are still on scene at the hospital as the story continues to develop. Back to you.
Stuart, much quieter out there behind you right now than it was a little while ago when we were listening to that woman talk about it, because there was so much confusion. And I think part of what we realize now, the reason that she did not understand where her son was, or her son's friends, that some people were still inside of that club. Some people had been killed, and you heard her mention that that those that had been killed were still inside. They are still inside right now, Stuart. As you mentioned, they're going and beginning the process now of getting vehicles over to that nightclub, processing the scene. But one of the things that we found out later, when you were outside of that hospital, a chaotic scene behind you. It was post 5 o'clock this morning. After we know now, the SWAT team had stormed in and taken that shooter out. There was this whole nother round of patients that were brought to the hospital. So describe for us that scene when you were outside of that hospital, when those patients started showing up, those doctors started rushing out.
Brett, that was one of the most emotional scenes and things that I've ever witnessed in my life. And I was on the next block over during the middle of a live report when that started to happen. And we could see one of those pickup trucks carrying bodies in the back of it, screaming down Orange Avenue in the middle of the road, going back towards this location so that they could get people into ORMC and to the ER. And we start running towards the entranceway so we could see exactly what was happening, whether or not this could have been someone who was involved with this. This was after the shooter was already dead. And once we saw the raw emotion of the people, some of the people were very respondent as they were pulled off of the back of those truck beds, screaming, yelling, in pain, obviously, because they had been shot. Other people not responding at all, just knowing that their bodies were picked off of the ambulance or the back of those trucks and thrown on the gurneys and then rushed in without any type of noise coming from them. So obviously we don't know the conditions of the people that were brought in here, but it was an emotional moment that people that weren't connected to those people all felt, because this is our community. The family members that were outside of the hospital, they were there. They witnessed as this happened. A lot of them started to rush where the police had the area blocked off because they wanted to know if it was their loved one that was being brought in at that time. They wanted to know if it was somebody that they knew that was being brought in at that time, that had waited for hours for some type of rescue so they could get them out of there. And they just wanted to see the face of that person that was involved. So when that all happened, it created a sense of panic as people rushed just to look over the police line to see what was happening. But we were not able to get close, and that repeated itself 6, 7, 8 times of different police trucks rushing patients to this location, ambulances rushing patients to this locations, regular patrol cars rushing patients to this location.
All right, Stuart, thank you so much for your account. And as we do know at this time, 42 people were taken to local hospitals around the area. 20 people, approximately 20 people that we know of right now, are still inside of that nightclub dead at the moment as police and sheriffs and FBI process the very large crime scene that we have this morning. Obviously, we have been hearing from witnesses who were inside the club, witnesses who work nearby, people who work at the club throughout the morning. We do now have a new account. Bob Keeling is standing by live with a resident who lives near this nightclub. Bob, who do you have with you?
Yeah, I've got a resident who lives just less than a block from the nightclub. And just to preface this by saying that this number that's come out from the police chief, 20 people dead inside the club, has hit people like a punch to the gut. One of the neighbors I have here is Don Amato. And Don, you said it's your birthday today.
Yes, this is not a very happy birthday. And right now I'm just in shock, shaking, probably done a lot of crying already because that is just a senseless event that just occurred.
Tell me what your morning was like. You had said it was pretty dramatic in terms of when you realized something was going on just right down the street.
Yeah, the weird part about it was early on, the day before, I just had a weird feeling. Something was just strange in the air. Just a gut feeling, and then just thought I heard shots and kind of brushed it off, and then went back to bed and lied down, and then cut the TV on, and there it is. Oh my God, right down the corner where I live, there's been major shooting and, you know, and still stuff going on.
And you'd said you got basically jarred back out of bed, didn't you?
Yes, and then again, I was like, told my roommate, said, you're not going to believe this, what? And we went and turned on the local television, and we were watching the coverage on Channel 2.